Hello. It's time for another creepy-ass dream blog. It's 5:12 a.m. Monday, May 1st. Yeah, I don't know why my dreams have all been so creepy lately, but I just woke up from another one. I'm always not myself, too, which is interesting. Like, usually in my dreams, I'm just me, but for the last while, I've always been a different character. This time I was a little girl. I was like maybe 8 to 10 years old. And the dream was kind of about my family. So I was a little girl, I had a mom and a dad, and I had an older brother who was like a teenager, like maybe 16 or something. And the dream like took place over a long period of time, and it also had like flashbacks to like previous times in our life, but like basically a lot of the dream was about like I had this like very abusive relationship with my brother, where my older brother was like very abusive towards me. And it wasn't usually in like really harsh ways, it was just like in a lot of little ways where he wasn't trying to physically harm me all that much because like he didn't want to get in trouble. He's mostly just trying to like torment me all the time and like bully me and make me feel scared. Yeah, so a lot of things like trapping me like in closets or like poking me with needles or like pinning me down in the bed and like keeping me there, just like I don't know, stuff like that. And I just remember always feeling really scared of him and like always feeling very uncomfortable because I felt like helpless, like I couldn't do anything without him knowing about it, and like he was always in control of me. And one interesting thing is like I had these powers where like sometimes I would turn invisible for a little while. And I remember every time that I turned invisible, I'd be like, okay, now's my chance, and I would try to like sneak away to like some part of the house like where like he wouldn't find me and I knew that he wouldn't be able to do anything to me when I was invisible. And I could also levitate. So when I turned invisible, I could also levitate. So it was like this thing where like if I was really careful, I could get around without anyone seeing me and basically without anyone hearing me, as long as I didn't knock against anything for a little while. I didn't quite know how long it was going to last ever. But I remember always trying, like, once I turned invisible, I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna try to, like, get away from him. But it was, like, a fairly small house, I think. Anyway, so, like, but I remember that, like, pretty much every time that I did turn invisible, I would try to hide from him, but for some reason it was really hard to. Like, even though I was invisible and I could float, he always seemed to be able to figure out where I was. And, like, he just had this really good knack for, like, knowing where I was and, like, he would sense me, he would sense my presence there really easily, and he would grab onto me and be like, I got you, and like choke me, and like all of this like scary stuff. And like anyway, I kind of I was getting really fed up, and like I decided to like make a plan to run away, and just said like the next time that I turn invisible, like I'm gonna have this bag ready and I'm gonna like run away like out into the forest. And like where we lived was like it was not in a city, it was like a pretty rural place. It was like in a forest, like up kind of on top of a hilly area, but looking down you could see this valley. And so like there was like all of this foresty area and like some crops, like farmland, but you could also see down in the valley there was like a little bit of a sprawling city. And so like not that far away there were like other buildings and people and stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna run away to there, like that's what I'm gonna do. And so I did it next time that I turned invisible, although I think the plans kind of went awry because I think that he he, again, like he always did, frustratingly, like, could sense that I was there, like, even though I was invisible. But I did something, like, I knocked over some huge thing and, like, kind of, like, trapped him or something. So I was like, I'm getting out of here, like, this time. And so he was, like, trapped for a while, and I ran out the door, and I wasn't that well prepared. I grabbed, like, some of the stuff that I'd planned to take, but I ran, and eventually, like, and this was at night, and eventually I got to a place that I don't know what it was, but it might have been like a hospital or a police station or something like that, where, like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, find a place that will help me. And I, like, walked in, and I think, and by this point I wasn't invisible, so, like, that was fine. That wasn't, like, a concern. But I walked in and, like, told the grown-ups, like, what was happening to me, and, like, that I needed help, and that it was, like, not safe, and all of this stuff. And, they called my parents, and eventually, like, my parents came down, like the next morning, and, like, and they basically, like, they, knew that this had been going on with this bullying stuff with my brother for a long time, but I think they, like, didn't realize just how bad it was. So basically, when they came down and, like, saw that I had run away, and that they know that, like, the authorities were, like, getting involved now, they were like, okay, like, let's deal with this. Like, we're gonna figure out a plan so that this does not keep happening to you. And basically what they decided to do was they decided that they would live in separate houses. So they decided, like, I think they decided that my dad and I would live together in a little house, and then kind of close by, but not in the same house. Like, my mom would live with my brother, and that would make it so that, like, we could both be parented, but my brother and I wouldn't live together. So that's what they decided. And I remember, like, there was this really, like, very, it's strange because it's like one of those dreams where I can't tell you what was really creepy about it, but it was really creepy. There was this very, like, disturbing scene where, like, my mom was, like, talking to the authorities and discussing all this stuff and discussing their plan, and my dad was sort of waiting in a little ways off in, like, a little waiting room sort of area, and he had this book in his hand that had, like, a picture of Big Bird, because it was, like, there were a lot of kids there, and so he had this book from the waiting room, and then he was, like, drawing. He took, like, a portion of the like, Big Bird drawing, and then, like, replicated it with a pen inside of the book, and he was doing it all, like, in this crazy, like, kind of scribbly way, and I was like, what is he doing? And then he was like, he finished it, and he showed it to me, and it was like he had replicated a portion of, like, Big Bird's body and, like, put it off to the side and drawn it, and then it looked like this really creepy, like, evil eye. And I just looked at him, and I was, like, so horrified, like, because he showed me this drawing, and then he, like, looked at me in this certain way, like, as if he was saying with his eyes, like, everything's fine, because I know something that you don't. And then, so that was pretty creepy. But anyway, so basically after that point, I still saw my parents, but I didn't have to, like, see my brother anymore. But it quickly became apparent, but it had never, like, really had cause to show up before now, because I had always lived with my brother. But it quickly became apparent. Also, I think I just realized what my name was. I think my name was Maricella. And it was kind of, I think we were, like, a Hispanic family. But yeah, so after the family rearrangement thing, it quickly became apparent that the real problem was not that my brother was, like, mentally disturbed. It was that there was a demon in my life who particularly wanted to torment me. And the reason they had always been my brother is because that had been like the best host. But now that my brother wasn't living with me anymore, it just transferred to whoever I wanted. So that time in the doctor's office or whatever that my dad was making the creepy picture, like it was in my dad. And then like there were times when it would transfer to my mom. It would just kind of, from then on, it got kind of sporadic. Like it would just go around a bunch of different people. And I remember there was like there was one scene where we were trying to shop for groceries and like it was chaos. Like it kept jumping back and forth between my mom and my dad. They were both there, and like it was trying to find like every dangerous, painful thing like in the grocery store. And I guess it was like more of like a general store too, because there were like knives and like a pincushion like full of needles and like a cheese grater and like, you know, all that kind of like horrific stuff. It'd just be like, yes, this is great, let's do this to your skin. And like it was one of those things where like it was really difficult for me to be in this situation, because at this point I had the knowledge that it wasn't the person who was doing it, but it was the demon inside of them controlling them. So I'm trying to not get them to hurt me, but also not get them to hurt themselves, because the demon doesn't give a shit like who it hurts. So yeah, it's really difficult. And I remember as well, like kind of as the story of the fact that it was this demon like started kind of unfolding in the dream, there were also a few flashbacks to like earlier times in my life that kind of made me realize like, oh, like of course this is a demon. Like there was this one flashback where I think it was like a birthday party or something, and I had a bunch of like stuffed animals, and my brother, like I was like moving them around, and I was moving them from like one end of the room to the other, and there was a few left. My brother was like, oh, don't worry, like I got those, watch this. And so I watched, and my brother just controlled them with his mind and made them move like real little animals like across the floor. And I was like, I thought it was neat because I was a little kid, but like looking back on it, I was like, that's hella creepy. Yeah, and I didn't, unfortunately, like there was not really much resolution to this dream. I think I woke up from it because it was really scary. Like I seem to be doing around this time a lot. Um, but yeah, it's funny. I actually think that when I woke up, it was like I was a little bit older, and the demon had like transferred to like my first boyfriend or something, and like he had like piercings in his lip, and there was this really creepy scene where like I kissed him and like he like ripped out his, this is so horrifying, I'm sorry, he like ripped out his lip piercings because the demon had gotten into him, and I don't know. Yeah, anyway. Lovely dream. Okay. Goodbye. Till next time.